I'm Ben Sheroan. I grew up in the Vine Grove area, actually on a little stretch of 1500 between Vine Grove and Fort Knox that's now been cut off by 361. I am the editor of the News Enterprise, have been in that job for about 6 years. I've worked in the newspaper industry of one sort or another since I was 16 and got a part-time job writing sports stories. I live in Elizabethtown. My wife and I have been married almost 39 years, and we've got 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Day to day, things vary a lot. That's one of the exciting things about the newspaper industry. You react to what's going on. It's not always the same. It can be quite different. You know, you have a structure that's created by your production cycle, but with the internet and other things, you need to be ready to respond and do breaking news at almost any time. As editor, I've got supervisory responsibilities for the entire newsroom. I might be involved in hiring on one day or doing some interviews related to that. There are times when, because of staff needs, I'm doing production, which is page design, headline writing. At other times, I might be filling in and covering an event or writing a story. So it's varied. I've taken photography, done a lot of various things in getting the paper out. I've got a lot of career skill sets that have developed over time so that I can kind of fill in as needed. But there are certain things that are responsibilities of the editor alone. Some of that related to personnel, some of that's related to budgeting, some of that related to dealing with the public, because there's a public perception when I am troubled by something or I don't agree with what the newspaper's written, or I think there's an error, I want to talk to the editor. So you've got to have those kind of skills as well to deal with troubleshooting and things that might pop up out of the clear blue sky. Salary issues are hard to identify. They range based on various papers. The community size has something to do with it sometimes, because newspapers are supported by advertising. So communities that have a wider retail base, a larger advertising base for the paper, may be able to be more free with their money as they determine how to spend it, and the quality of people that they can reach out to, and sometimes is based upon how well they can pay. At a paper of our size, the editor's job, is not a place to get rich. There are really no places in the newspaper industry to get rich. It's a place where you have a lot of creative freedom and ability to show and demonstrate your skills, and you're also somewhat able to move within community leaders, and some people find some satisfaction with that. The money is important, but it's not the critical place when you're making a decision about where to start your career. When I started, what I made was $125 a week working in sports. Today that'd be well below the minimum wage. I tell people my wife gives me $60 a week to live on, so I'm probably making less than I did when I was starting out. Steps along the career path can vary from person to person, obviously. But for me, I kind of came in the back door. I had an opportunity to demonstrate some interest and develop skills as a sports writer. They needed a part-time person. I'd started in that role when I was in high school. It was basically covering games. I was going to games anyway. I knew how to keep a stat sheet. I knew how to track turnovers or whatever the statistic was. Then I had to learn how to put those into words that made it interesting, compelling, good reading. Eventually learned photography in that process as well, so that I could have illustrations with my stories. It was a slow and sometimes arduous process. Some of my first stories I didn't recognize when they were in the paper, because they had been edited so in depth and so thoroughly that they didn't feel like what I had turned in. And probably because what I turned in wasn't really that good, wasn't ready for publication. Over time, that became less and less common, and you got to a point where you understood what was expected, and you learned some tricks, and you got some techniques. Most of the people that come into our business today have had some of that exposure in college or even in high school through writing programs, through English classes, but also through specific courses in journalism that talk about journalism ethics, that talk about story structure, that talk about deadline writing and techniques that you can learn. But a lot of it has to be learned. A lot of it has to be hands-on. And I was fortunate to have some people that gave me opportunities and showed me how to do that. From there were other skill sets to learn, how to be effective in editing other people's copy, how to design pages, how to do that kind of structure and organization. Eventually, now today, all that design gets done electronically with software programs like InDesign, and you manipulate photos to prepare them for publication with Photoshop. So it's a higher skill set, perhaps, than when I started out. But I've had to learn all that through training in the industry, whereas a lot of students come in with that skill set already when they leave college because they've tried to reflect the newest and latest technology in those college programs. People wanting to go into journalism, wanting to go into any form of media today typically will have either a communications degree or a specific journalism degree. We do have some people on our staff who don't have those degrees, who maybe were an English major or came to us through a backdoor where they were involved in research or some other kind of topic that they became able to ask questions and learned to be inquisitive and learned how to put together and tell a narrative. Because storytelling is a part of what we do, and there's really not a class or a college for storytelling. You know, it's a matter of sometimes you learn that at Grandpa's knee, listening to him tell you about his childhood or something like that. Other times, you know, the people have come to us maybe with a real strong visual ability. They can design really well or present stories in a visual way through photography or graphics or things like that. And they may pick up the words later. So you know, it's a diverse group, and that's another exciting thing is we cover a diverse community. We cover people from a lot of backgrounds. So you know, having people with different skill sets that come at it from a different direction, who perceive things in different ways, is an important part of our processes. We don't want it to all be uniform, because if we look at everything from one point of view, then we'll never see the nuances of the community. So it's not like every other business. In fact, it's not like all the businesses in our building. You know, if you think about, I've often told people that there's a job in the newspaper industry for almost any skill set. We've got bookkeepers who make sure we get paid, and we really appreciate that. We've got salespeople who are dealing daily with customers and have a lot of personality in general, and are good at helping customers meet their goals through advertising and through the various outreaches that we can provide. Then we'll have people who are very mechanically inclined, that maybe run the presses or do pre-press work, things that are vital to the process, but not always seen or perceived as being part of the newspaper industry. And then we've got a creative group who go out and interview people and try to develop, you know, the stories of the day and figure out what content will be compelling, but also informative and educational to the community at large. So it's really diverse, and it's kind of fun sometimes to see how different people perceive what we do, even within our own building. I went to high school at North Hardin, graduated in 1976. There were some specific classes that I did related to journalism and media, but I think I got probably the most of what I carry today are things that I would have thought were annoying maybe at that time, but things like English classes, where there was an emphasis on understanding the parts of a sentence, where there was an emphasis on making good verb choices, which is part of what I do every day, about being able to tell what you need to tell succinctly and quickly, which is what we always do in the newspaper industry, from the headline writing to the lead paragraph. It's all about how do we communicate this effectively to people who don't get to hear our inflections or don't understand what we're meaning. We have to put it in a clear, precise meaning. Understanding where commas go and where commas don't go. It can change complete meaning of a sentence. And those were things that good English teachers stressed, and that I learned at the high school level that still carry through for me today. You know, when I think about life lessons and things that are important for my career, it starts with curiosity, and people don't talk about curiosity much, but being interested in other people and understanding what makes them make the decisions they make, also what they're doing and why that would be compelling to tell other people. A lot of people don't recognize they have stories in them. They just do what they do, and the curiosity of people in my business sometimes pull those stories out. We find those details and share that with other people. I think also, you know, one of the things that's really true to my career path has been accepting and being willing to accept new responsibilities. Not always asking, you know, what am I going to make for that, or will I get a raise if I do this, but, you know, I just want to present what I do better, you know, so maybe it's learning photography when I was a writer. I didn't have to do that, but by learning how to do that, it made me more valuable. There were times where I could fill in, could do something that needed to be done that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Same thing with page design, headline writing. They weren't part of my core responsibilities, but by learning those, I put myself in a position for advancement. And those advancements, you know, when people see that you're willing to step out, that you're willing to take responsibility, that you want to learn new things, they generally encourage that and will give you more opportunities. And by helping crack those doors open, it led for a guy to move from a part-time sports writer to eventually work in 4 states in the newspaper industry, run some newspapers, and eventually come full circle back to his hometown as editor of that paper. What would be surprising to most students about my job? I mean, how editing is just a fraction of what I do, and people assume that I've read every story that's in the paper, made every selection, approved every headline, when very often some of the, if not the majority of the production of that day's paper happens after I leave for the day. That we set a course for that we work with other editors or other reporters and photographers to select what those topics are going to be, but the final treatment of that is not necessarily, you know, going through my fingertips. While there are other things that might go, you know, from beginning to end, if it was a special project or perhaps a unique thing that I want to hold closely because of the technical nature of it or something like that, or the expectation for feedback. But I don't think people really recognize that it's a group that puts it together. They see it like they do in a movie where the star is the editor and that person is making every call along the way. To be successful is a lot about doing the little things consistently, doing the little things right, caring about quality, not compromising quality. That's really tough sometimes too, because you don't always have the resources you need. You don't always have the dollars that it takes to do that. It's easy if you have all the resources in the world to do quality work. Sometimes you have to do quality work with a camera that works part-time, or with a computer that wants to crash every time you pull in a graphic. And it is annoying, but you have to get past that, and you know, it's just being persistent and stick-to-itiveness that makes a difference, and knowing when to really raise your expectations and stand for quality is important in most creative fields.